Welcome to today's class, Fundamentals of Business. We'll be focusing on production and operations management this morning as one of the core functional areas of business that we have to learn under Fundamentals of Business. Okay, so as usual, I will be putting my video off so that we can actually concentrate on the slides. So we'll be looking at this study objectives this morning. We'll be looking at the meaning of production, then the process and functions, and the production management. We're looking at production management itself. We'll be looking at the factors to consider when you want to locate your business. We'll be looking at the explanations for plant or facility layout. We're looking at production systems, production planning and control, and then materials management. Okay, because of the nature, the content of this particular topic, we will be doing the topic in two parts. So we'll actually get to plant and facility layout for the part one of this particular lecture on productions and operations management. Then in part two, we'll look at the production systems, production planning and control, as well as materials management. Okay, so let's get started with some explanations. So production is an intentional act of producing something in an organized manner. So it's an intentional act of producing something in an organized manner, not anyhow, but there are structures in place in order to help you to produce something. It is the fabrication of physical object through the use of man or human resource, material, and some function which has some utility. All right, so it could be a physical object, something tangible, or it could be a function which has some form of utility for people. All right, so the last bit seeks to address services. The first aspect of the definition, the second definition is about goods, physical object. And the last aspect is that you can also manufacture or produce a service, a function that provides some form of utility for people. All right, so production can be used for both goods and then services as well. Right, the types of production, we have primary production, we have secondary production, and we have tertiary production. Let's look at what this means. So with primary production, the focus is on extracting raw materials from nature. All right, so we have some examples to include farming, fishing, forestry, horticulture, and mining. So if you are into this form of occupation, you are into what is known as primary production, okay, where you deal directly with nature. Farmers, fisher folks, those that cut timber or log from the forest, they deal directly with things of nature. And if you're at that stage of production, it is known as primary production. From primary production, we move to the secondary production. All right, so in secondary production, there is the processing of the raw materials into finished or semi-finished goods. So when you get to the secondary production, the extractive raw materials that were taken during the primary production are processed into either finished or semi-finished goods. Okay, so secondary production includes processing, manufacturing, assembly. So if you are into this business, you are at the secondary stage of production, known as secondary production. Then we have tertiary production. All right, so they are into the rendering of services. Okay, so there is nothing physical or tangible, but this service is very critical because it can assist both the primary and the secondary stages of production. Okay, so the examples include travel and transport, marketing, finance and accounting, entertainment, communication, retailing. Right, so nothing tangible, but they are very, very important to make sure that the earlier two forms of production, that i.e. primary production, secondary production, actually perform well. So we have factors of production that we have to know. So this, for any type of production, you must have some interplay of these factors. These factors must work together in order for any production to be effective. All right. So the first is land. So we have the natural resource or gifts of nature, right? That is that. In law, it may have a different explanation, but we're just taking the basic understanding of what land is. So it's a natural resource or gifts of nature. And for any type of business, one way or the other, you need land to be part of the factors of production. Even if you're into services, you may have one or two offices that you need land in order to have this service to be rendered from that particular place. Okay, the house or the place that you rent, the office space, all of that are components of land. Another key factor of production is labor. Right, it is the human effort of the body or body used to make goods or services. So either goods or services, you need a human effort. Human resources play a critical part in order for you to be able to produce anything, either a service or a goods. Then the last part, the third one, you need capital. So it consists of man-made resources which help to produce goods and services. So the land, we said it comes from nature, but when we're talking about capital, they are man-made resources. Okay, so the machines, the equipment, and even the finances that you need to be able to get the business going. The finance actually helps you to be able to acquire the necessary tools or the capital that can help you to process whatever you are into that finished goods or the service that you want to render to society. So the capital bit is man-made resources. The land is about the natural resource or the gift of nature that you need in order to be able to produce any service or goods. All right. Then the last aspect is entrepreneurs. Is the human effort used in coordinating other factors of production for more productive purposes. So you can have land, you can have labor, you can have capital. If you don't have an entrepreneur that will bring together these factors in an organized manner, they will just be there. They won't be able to serve any purpose. All right. So it is important that you have an entrepreneur, somebody with some business sense and intelligence to pull all of these previous three resources together to be able to make sure they can work together to produce a goods or render a service. All right. So these are the four factors of production: the land, the labor, land being the natural gift, the labor being the human effort that is needed, capital being the man-made resources, artificial resources in terms of machines, equipment, and even the finances to be able to acquire these machines. Then the last one being the entrepreneur, who is supposed to pull together all of the previous three factors in order to be able to produce the goods or the service that you want to serve the market with. All right. So the production process. So we have the input stage. That is the stage where you get the raw materials. Most of the time it will be connected to the extractive or the primary production, as we explained much earlier. Okay, but if it is service, the input could be something else apart from the things that we take directly from nature. So you have input. These inputs need to be processed. So the next stage is transformation process, where whatever input that you got will have to be processed before getting the output. The output could either be goods or services, as we explained much earlier. Okay, so these are the three stages. The stage where you put together all the materials raw materials that are needed. Okay, then you have to get some machines, some equipment, the capital bit that will be able to process these raw materials. And then you have the output bit, being the finished goods or service that you want to render to the market or the public. Okay. What then is production management? Production management is the process of effectively planning and regulating the operations of that part of an enterprise, which is responsible for actual transformation of materials into finished products. So for every aspect, for every enterprise, they will have either a department, a unit, an aspect that is responsible for the transformation of materials into finished goods. And the systems and structures that are put in place to regulate those operations is what is known as production management. Okay. And once again, you have to pay attention that production management is not only for goods or physical products. You can have a production management or team even when it is about service. Okay, so all of the systems that are put in place to regulate actual transformation of materials into finished products, it's known as the production management. What are the objectives of production operations management? What do they seek to achieve? So the objective of these aspects of a business is in terms of performance objectives. They have some performance targets that they may want the organization to achieve. And they also have cost objectives. Okay, not just in performing, but also to achieve some cost targets and cost efficiency. So let's look at the breakdown of these things. So with performance objectives, they will be seeking to help the organization achieve efficiency or productivity in the way they do things. So this is expressed as output per unit of input. All right, how much are we able to get from unit of input or investment that we make into that particular production? So the operations and production management will want to ensure that there is efficiency or productivity. We don't waste resources or raw materials in that particular organization, but any raw materials that we use in our manufacturing or in our production, we'll be able to get the maximum output out of those inputs that we invest in the process. Then they want to ensure effectiveness as part of the performance objective. So this concerns whether a right set of output is being produced. So efficiency is about ensuring that we don't waste resources. Effectiveness is about ensuring that we are actually producing the right type of products. Okay, it's very, very important to have both. So you can be efficient in terms of not wasting resources, but you may not be effective in the sense that even though you have not wasted the resources or inputs of the organization, whatever you've used those managed to produce is not really what the organization should be into. All right. It's not part of the core mission of that particular organization. If that is the case, you have been efficient, but not effective. But it is also possible to be effective and not efficient. That is where you produce what is needed by the organization or by the market that you're seeking to serve, but you've actually wasted a lot of resources in the course of trying to produce those particular products. Okay. So production and operations management is there to ensure that you achieve both efficiency and effectiveness. Okay. Then under performance objective, they want to ensure quality. So quality is the extent to which a product or service satisfies the customer's needs. So it's important to ensure that the production takes place or releases or produces goods and services that are of good quality for the market that the organization is seeking to serve. Then they want to ensure capacity utilization and flexibility. All right. So one of the factors of production is land. And I explained much earlier that the office space that you'll be using is part of land. All right. The machines will always have to be at certain place. You want to make sure that you make effective use of the office spaces as much as possible. But capacity utilization also ensures that you have the right amount of raw materials in place so that your machines will be able to run at their maximum capacity. Okay, so if you bought a machine that can produce 1,000 units per day, You don't want to have a situation where, because of, say, the absence of raw materials or the absence of labor, the machine is doing, say, 500 output per day. If you do that, you are not utilizing the capacity of the machines and the equipment that you have. In the same way, if you don't arrange the office spaces very well, you can underutilize the land of the physical space that you have in the organization. So production and operations management is there to ensure that there is maximum capacity utilization and flexibility. We won't just buy machines for them to be lying down idly, but we should be able to make use of these machines to get the best out of them. Okay, flexibility also is talking about in case you want to venture into a new product, your existing machine should be able to help you in addressing that particular need, so that you don't have to acquire totally different machines or gadgets to be able to render that particular service. If you do that, you are almost into a different line of business altogether. But if it is closely related to what you are currently doing, the equipment and the machine should help you to be able to adjust your designs in order to be able to serve those, produce those new goods or services that you want to provide to the market. Okay, so all of that are part of the objectives that the production operations management seeks to achieve. Then we have the cost objectives aspect. So attaining high degree of customer satisfaction on performance fronts must be coupled with lower cost of producing the goods or rendering a service. Okay, so it's closely related to efficiency, but this time around, the cost aspect is more of the finances, where we don't want to spend so much money in producing something. We want to lower the cost and reduce wastage as much as possible in order to be able to achieve our targets in cost-effective way. Okay, so overall, the objectives of the production operations management is to ensure that there is proper performance, and the performance is achieved at reasonable or lower cost as much as possible. Right, we come to the business or plant location. It refers to the place where the firm or its plants are situated. It is a long-term commitment and requires a substantial investment. So it's very, very important that you don't just get up out of feelings or desire to set up your business anywhere. Okay, it is very, very important to take certain factors into consideration before establishing a plant or setting up a business at a particular location. So that is what this subtopic is about. What are the factors we have to take into consideration when we're setting up our businesses? So point one says availability of labor. Okay, if your type of business is very labor intensive, such that you need a lot of people to work with in order to be able to produce those goods or render those particular service, availability of labor or skilled labor is one of the factors that you have to take into consideration. Okay, so don't just set up anywhere, but you want to find out whether after you've established that particular business, you get skilled people to be able to work with or work for you in order to be able to render that service or that product. Okay, this point explains why most international companies now find themselves in most of the Asian countries like China, Taiwan, and so on and so forth, because you can get labor, and most of these guys are very skilled in what they do. Okay, so availability of labor is key in determining where to set up your business. Proximity to raw materials, that is a very, very important point. So if your raw materials are such that they are heavier, we have some type of industry where the raw materials are quite heavier than the finished products. All right, and we have those that the raw materials are lighter than the finished product. So if you're dealing with raw materials that are quite heavy, and you have to spend a lot of money moving them from their natural site to the place, your factory, it will really make business sense to set up your businesses close to where those raw materials are. Okay, instead of carrying them to your factory to do the processing and all that. Okay, so what comes to mind are the setup of mining firms, for example. Most of the time, they are the very place where the mining is being taking place in order to reduce the length and the time that is required to move those stones or rocks from site to, say, the factory for processing to be done. If you do that, you actually spend a lot of money on the raw materials than even you will have done on the finished goods. So if you're dealing with a situation or an industry where the cost of carrying raw materials are very high, you are dealing with very heavy raw materials, it makes business sense to set up closer to where the raw materials can be found in order to minimize the costs associated with transportation and related cost as well, loading and other costs like that. Okay. Then we have proximity to the market. Right. So for some other businesses, what is key is whether you are closer to the market. You are closer to where people are. Okay. Very important. Most times, especially with SMEs, because of the desire to start businesses, people just set up anywhere. The place might be a new site. We just have about 5 or 10 houses. And then you see somebody with a shop trying to sell stuff, okay, at a place where really nobody is. And most of the time, I wonder the kind of thinking that went into starting the business at that particular place. Okay, if all the people in the area even choose to buy, you just have about 10 or 5 households. How many of your product can they buy for you to be able to break even or even make profit? All right. So for most businesses, if you're into retailing and just trading, what you should be thinking about more is proximity to market. How closer is your business to the market where people are? All right. So you have to take that into consideration. This explains why if you even go to the market, most of the time, related businesses are normally located at the same place. The idea is that when people get to know about that particular place, right, the tendency of them coming there whenever they need a product or service of that type is higher. All right. If you may choose to set up yours thinking that you want to avoid competition, but in the minds of consumers, when they need a service or product of that type, that is the place that easily comes to mind. So it's very important that you set your businesses close to the market, depend upon the type of industry. And I said, if it is in retail and wholesale, dealing directly with customers, that becomes a very important. If you're into processing, most of the time you may be thinking more about raw materials, being close to where the raw materials are. But if you're into retailing, especially, then you need to be more mindful of proximity to the market or the people that you're seeking to serve. All right. The other points that you need to take into consideration is infrastructure. Okay, infrastructure. Yes, so once again, the excitement that comes with entrepreneurship may cause you to just set up a business anywhere. But sometimes after you've done huge investment, you then realize that the road networks to that particular place is not good. In fact, out of the excitement, you didn't pay attention to those factors when you started. Okay, you now will be struggling to get power or electricity to your site. The guys are not prepared to help you get it. The road networks are bad, and so on and so forth. Probably these facilities are also very critical to the type of business that you want to provide. So it is important to make sure these facilities will be available before you even start the huge investment into this type of businesses. Okay, so I've heard a lot of complaints from businessmen in this direction as well. All right, they are excited. Government goes and talk about what they are doing, inviting foreigners to come and invest. Yeah, so out of the excitement, they don't really do proper cross-checking. It is only after investing huge amounts of money that they find it that it's not very easy to get this infrastructure issues fixed for them. Okay. Some have abandoned some projects like that. Then you pay attention to government incentives. So it's very close to infrastructure. All right. Most of the time, the things that you need to be provided by the government of the day. So you want to find out what are the incentives packages available. Are they prepared to invest in infrastructure, for example? What are the tax waivers that they are prepared to give? Okay, say for 5 years, for 10 years, and so on and so forth. So you need to know conversant with the tax laws and policies of the country where you want to locate and find out what are the government incentives for entrepreneurs or people that want to locate or set up businesses. Then proximity to transport facilities, proximity to amenities, all of this will fall under infrastructure. All right. And these are not point. Okay, let me just add the last one. Government influences. So part of government incentives. Very, very important to take the last point serious. All right. What is the nature of the democracy of that particular country? Is it the case that government of the day can at any time get up and seize your businesses and seize your organization? All right. Sometimes they won't just seize it actively or openly for people to know, but there are all manner of manipulations that are done to frustrate you in order to leave the business and run away. So you want to pay attention to government influences and the jurisdiction in which you want to set up your businesses. Okay. Right. So we have about 8 factors here, but you need to know the type of industry and then identify what is relevant for you at any point in time. Not all of them may be important to you at any point in time. All right. Some may be more critical and you need to pay attention to this point. Okay. So moving to plant layouts. When we're defining production, we said we want to produce, production is where we want to produce something, either physical object or something that provides utility in an organized manner. All right. We don't just want to produce it anyhow, but we want it in an organized manner. So we need to have what is known as a plant layout. So it's the disposition of various facilities, equipment, materials, manpower in an organization. All right. You don't just want to leave things lying anywhere. It has health implications. It has impact on how effective and how efficient production will go on and so on and so forth. So it is important that there is a proper layout, plant layout for the type of business that you want to undertake in your organization. Okay. So according to James, plant layout involves the allocation of space and the arrangement of equipment in such a manner that overall cost is minimized. So you don't want to waste the space that you've invested money in acquiring. It could be plain land, it could be offices, whatever be the case. You want to arrange your equipment in such a manner that you minimize the cost. You make very efficient use of the space that you have acquired and also minimize the overall cost involved. If you don't utilize the space well, what will happen is that you may have to go and rent another apartment, another office space to be able to get your things going. All right. And the additional renting comes with additional cost to your business. But if you use the proper plant layout, it is possible to avoid such cost. That is where that point is coming from. Okay. Or it is the overall arrangement of equipment, people, materials handling, storage, and service operations required for efficient operation of the production system. So we need to put structures, arrange equipment, and so on at the right places in order to ensure efficient operations. All right. Most of the time that we waste, especially at mechanic shops and so on and so forth, is because of poor layout. All right. They are looking for a particular tool. They can't find it. They are looking for some type of spanner, whatever it is. They spend 30 minutes to hours Okay, most of the time, because there is no proper plant layout in those wayside mechanic shops. Okay, it is also called production design or facilities layout. So what are the objectives of a good plant layout? Why is it important that in your organization you ensure a proper layout? So the principal objective of a proper layout is to maximize production at the minimum cost. Okay, so you want to make an efficient use of your space, your machines, to maximize production at the minimum cost. I explained the minimum cost bit. If you don't arrange your staff well, the land that you've gone to rent may not be enough for you, and you have to spend more money and so on and so forth. All right. Sometimes the cost could be in terms of time, the time for searching for tools, for machines to get something done. If the factory was properly laid out, you know exactly where which tool is in order to reduce that type of cost. Okay, so let's look at other objectives. Other objectives include minimizing the waiting time of semi-finished goods. Okay, so if it is properly laid out, once one aspect of the production is done, it should easily shift or move. The semi-finished product should move to the next stage for the other workers to pay attention to that until it becomes a finished product. Okay, yes, but if the layout is not properly done, it will take a lot of time for work in progress of semi-finished products to move from one stage to the other. All right, and that could increase the costs of operations for the organization. Minimizing movement made by workers. That is also very, very key. Okay, so assuming distance from one stage of production to the other is about 100 meters, all right, and it is not so because of risks or anything involved, it's due to just poor layout of the factory. What it means is that at any point in time, you have people moving back and forth to get work done, instead of actually bringing the next stage closer to the first stage. All right. And most of the time, if you go to, once again, the wayside mechanic shops and you want to get your work done, your car worked on, you experience some of this things. Okay. Sometimes instead of just taking the whole box of tools, bringing it closer to your car, they actually go pick just one thing, come try it and realize, oh, it won't work. They go back to pick another tool and come back. They can spend about an hour just trying to get the right type of tool that they should use to fix some part of your car. All right. But with proper plant layout, it minimizes the movement of workers. You can have everything there to get the work done more easily and faster. To ensure proper utilization of space, I think I've touched on this as well. Without proper layout, you are likely to misuse the space. And once the space is misused, you must spend more money to get additional space. To efficiently control and minimize material handling and transportation, right? If you do it well, you may not have to move things from one place to the other. The associated cost of damages and breakages gets minimum. Okay, and the cost of transportation is also cut down because you've arranged things in such a way that you don't have to walk a distance to be able to get to the next stage of production. Allocating suitable spaces to production centers and enhancing flexibility of product design. All right, so all of this are critical objectives where you need to have a good plant layout. Okay, if it's laid out well, these objectives or these advantages and these benefits may accrue to a business organization. Factors influencing plant layout. What are the factors that you need to consider in determining how to lay out your plant? All right. So the first is the nature of the product. Okay, so the nature of the product to be manufactured will significantly affect the layout of the plant. So stationary layout will be most suitable for heavy products, while line layout will be best for manufacturing of the light products, because small and light products can be moved from one machine to another very easily. And therefore, more attention can be paid to machine location. Locations can be paid to and handling of materials. So if you're dealing with heavy products, you need to use what is known as stationary layout. But if you're dealing with light products, then you may have to consider line layout. Okay, so stationary layout and line layout, very, very important, because with one, you don't have to move from one place to the other, as I kept explaining. Everything can be done at one place, okay? And you need that layout where you're dealing with heavy equipment, because moving them from one place to the other will cost you a lot. There could be damages and so on and so forth. So why not bring everything rather to where the manufacturing is supposed to be done, instead of moving that product from point one to the other? All right. But if you're dealing with line, whatever products that are light, you can easily move them from point one to point B to point C without any huge cost or at a minimum cost. And therefore, you can choose to use what is known as the line layout. All right. Second point to consider is the volume of production. So volume of production and standardization of the product also affect the type of layout. If standardized commodities are to be manufactured on large scale, line type of layout may be adopted. Okay, so if you're dealing with standardized products and they are to be produced in large scale, then you can use the line type of layout. Much earlier, don't forget, we said line is also good for light products, where you can easily move from the product or the semi-finished product from one stage to the other. If you're also dealing with large standardized volumes, okay, and most of the time it's the light that you can do and in higher volumes or greater volumes and so on and so forth. Once again, you can use the line layout. Okay. Then basic managerial policies and decisions should also be considered in deciding the type of plant layout. Okay, so the type of layout depends very much on the decision and policies of the management to be followed in producing the commodity with regard to the size of plants, kind and quality of the product, scope of expansion to be provided for, the extent to which the plant is to be integrated, amount of stocks to be carried at any time, the kind of employee facilities to be provided, and so on and so forth. So likely what the point is trying to say is that it depends on managerial policy. So management may have the policy that given the industry that we are in, the type of products that we produce, will only go with stationary layout, or will be going with line layout. So the nature of the type could also be dependent on managerial policies and decisions. Okay. Then the nature of plant location. All right. So the size, shape, and topography of the site at which the plant is located will naturally affect the type of layout to be followed in view of the maximum utilization of the space available. Okay, so the nature of the land itself. In fact, it's part, if you're putting up a building and the place, the land is not flat, but there is slopey and so on and so forth, that tend to influence the design or the type of building that you can put up. So the same thing, if the land is not flat and not well laid or structured, that can influence the type of plant layout that you should be using. For example, if a site is near the railway line, there are arrangement of general layout for receiving and shipping, and for the best flow of production in and out, the plant may be made by the side of the railway lines. Okay, so where even the land is located can influence, the nature of the land can influence how the layout should be done. All right. Then the type of industry process. So this is one of the most important factors influencing the choice of plant layout. Generally, the type of layout, particularly the arrangement of machines and work centers and the location of workmen, vary to the nature of the industry to which the plant belongs. Okay, so the nature of the industry can tell. Is it an intermittent type of industry or is it a continuous type of industry? That can influence the type of layout that you can undertake. Then types of methods of production, all right? So very close to the type of industry. So under job production, goods are produced according to the orders of customers, and therefore specifications vary from customer to customer, and the production cannot be standardized, all right? So the machines and equipment can be arranged in a manner to suit the need of all types of customers. Okay, so if you're dealing with job production, you have to take orders from customers and produce to meet those specifications. And it's not like you're producing in mass quantities. You have to design or have products in such a way that their equipment, the arrangement of those equipments can easily be adjusted in order to meet the specification and orders of customers or clients. All right. If it is batch production carries the production of goods in batches or group at intervals. And this type of manufacturing, the product is standardized and production is made generally in anticipation of sales. In such cases, functional or process layout may be adopted. In case of mass production or standardized goods, line layout is most suitable form of plant layout. All right, so you just produce a mass quantity waiting for orders, and then you supply or meet those orders. All right, so if that is the case, you can go for the line layout because you are not actually producing to meet any specifications. You're just producing large quantities to sell as and when orders come. Okay. The nature of machines. So the nature of machines and equipment also affects layout of plants. If machines are heavy in weight or create noisy atmosphere, stationary layout may reasonably be adopted. Okay, heavy machines are generally fixed on the ground floor. Ample space should be provided for complicated machines to avoid accidents. So the type of machines that you're using also can influence the type of layout that you want to use. If they are heavy machines, normally you can't be moving them about. So you have to employ the stationary where everything is brought together at one place in order to manufacture or produce that product. Okay. Then we have the climate. Okay. So sometimes the temperature, illumination, and air are the deciding factors in the location of machines and their establishment. All right. So the environment within which, the climate within which you are operating can also influence the way you should arrange your machines. All right. The nature of material that you are using and the type of machines involved. Much earlier, we just spoke about if they are huge machines or heavy machines, you have to be using the stationary type of layout and so on and so forth. So on a whole, these are the factors that influence plant layout. How you should lay out your company or facility will be dependent on these factors. Cost associated with plant layout. So if you don't pay attention to proper laying out of your plant, these are some of the costs that you have to be dealing with. Okay, so there is likely to be cost of space. I've spoken about this over and over again. So it costs to be able to get that space, and so you need a proper plant layout to make the maximum use of the space that you currently have. If you don't, you will bear the cost of space. Then there could be cost of movement of material from one work area to another. If you don't do a proper plant layout to minimize the transportation or the movement, that could be additional cost that you have to bear as a business. Then cost of production delays, if any, which are indirect costs. So if point 2 is not addressed and materials and things have to be moved from long distances before production can take place, you have to deal with the cost of production delays as well. Cost of spoilage of material. Yes, it could be as a result of transportation, as I've explained much earlier. You have to deal with that. Then cost of labor dissatisfaction and health risks. All right. If you don't put the machines at where the right proper place and so on and so forth, you are bound to have industrial accidents and so on and so forth because of poor plant layout. All right. It should be properly structured with pathways for people and employees to be able to move about more easily without any form of risks or minimum risks. Okay, so a good layout should minimize all these costs put together. So if you have a good layout, you should be able to minimize the cost associated with poor plant layout. So types of layouts. We have 3 basic types of plant layout. We have the functional or process layout. We have the product or line layout. And we have the stationary layout or fixed position layout. All right. So when we're explaining influence and factors that influence and which type of layout, we mentioned some of these types of layout. So let's look at what they actually mean. So with functional or process layout, it's a form of layout where similar machines or operations are kept in one location. All right. So everything about that particular function is brought together under one location. It is generally employed for industries engaged in job order production and non-standardized products. Separate departments are set for each specialized operation of production. All right. So if you take, say, furniture, all right, normally you go from cutting, then you get into joining, you get into, say, polishing and finishing, or finishing and polishing. All right. So with job order or functional process layout, you bring together every machine that is needed for the cutting at that particular point. You bring them together. Machines that will be needed for joining are brought together and placed under another department. Machines that will be required for finishing and polishing and all that are also brought together under one particular department or location. Okay, under one location, right? And we have been told that it is generally employed for industries engaged in job order production and non-standardized products. So you normally, job order basically means that you're producing to meet some specifications of a client or customer. And it's not as if you want to produce a mass and keep them and simply sell what you have produced to the market. No, with job order, you have to produce to meet the specifications of your clients or customers. If that is the case, then it makes sense for you to have locations that will pay attention to the specifications of the customers or the clients that have brought the order. All right. So based on the specifications, the cutting that must be done for customer A may be different from customer B or C. So you need the A people in that location to make the right decisions. The joining requirement that is required for customer B will be different from customer C. Okay, the polishing and finishing requirement may be different. All right, so you need separate departments or units to pay attention to this specifications or requirement from the customer if you're doing a job order or a non-standardized products production. Okay, so advantages of process layout: it leads to flexibility in the allotment of work to equipment and workers. All right, so if it is about cutting, we know where to send that particular type of job. All right, because all of the people engaged machines in cutting is at a particular place. So we can easily go to that particular place with jobs that are engaged in with cutting. And there is also flexibility because that is what they specialize in. They can always adjust the carton to meet the requirement of the specifications of the customers or the client that has come to request for some product or service. All right. So it allows for flexibility because that is what each unit is supposed to specialize in doing. They have to adjust their activities to meet the specifications or requirements of their customers. All right. It creates better quality product due to attending to one type of machine at a time. So I think that is that point also. Okay. So you must attend to one work at any point in time, and each location pays attention, detailed attention to the next activity that must be done as far as that product is concerned. And so ultimately there is the tendency for better quality products. All right. It fosters jobs variety, which makes the work more interesting for workers. So you may have the cutting stage, you have the joining stage, you have the polishing or finishing stage, and so on and so forth. This is just a basic example. All right. So if you are bored with, say, cutting and you have expertise in joining, you can get in there. If you are bored with joining and you like the finishing part of the work, you can also get in there, provided you have the skill set to be able to do that. So it offers jobs variety. You are not stuck to just one part of the work. It leads to better and efficient supervision due to specialization of operation. All right. So it's easy to supervise those that are cutting because that is all they are supposed to be doing. It's easy to supervise the work of those that are joining because that is all that they are required to be doing. All right. A breakdown in one machine does not interrupt the entire production flow. Okay. So the cutting, if there is a breakdown, it's only that aspect. All right. That unit or that location that has been affected. All right. The guys that are doing the joining might have some work that they have to continue with as far as joining. Those that are into polishing may have some work that they can continue with in terms of the polishing. All right. This is different from where there is an actual flow of work from one unit to the other, such that there is no a break in one leads to an interruption of the entire production system. There is not that type of layout. All right. Where you have goods automatically being moved, right? Conveyor belts moving from one step to the other. One person must finish before it gets to the other, and so on. Once there's a breakdown in stage one, stage 2, and stage 3, people will not have anything to do. No, that is not how this is done. All right. All the units are almost autonomous of each other, and therefore the breakdown in one machine will not interrupt the entire production process. All right. Disadvantages of process layout. Automated material handling is extremely difficult. All right. So based on my earlier explanation, this method doesn't rely on conveyor belts to move goods from one stage to the other or one location to the other. No. All right. Normally, it's a specialized unit, semi-autonomous unit that engages in whatever they are supposed to be doing. So you cannot automate the process. Okay, cutting people are free to do their cutting anytime they want, pay attention to the specifications. The joining people have all the time to do that. The finishing and polishing people have their own time to do whatever, and so on and so forth. So you cannot automate that. Okay. And that's a disadvantage because then time and other things could be wasted at each location. It increases the need of working capital in the form of inventory. Okay, so you need more machines at each stage. You need more people at each stage because their work is almost independent of each other, as I explained, even though they rely on each other to get the finished product. But each unit is considered almost an independent unit, and you need a whole sort of working capital to be able to feed that particular unit. Okay, it requires relatively more floor space. All right, so if you've understood my explanation earlier, they are almost autonomous, so they will need their own space, their own location to be able to do what they are supposed to be doing. So it requires more floor space. Raw materials have to travel longer distances for processing into finished goods, and this increases material handling and associated cost. I think this is very clear. Then it could lead to cost of supervision being high. All right. The supervision could be better, but the cost of the supervision is high, because if there are three separate locations based on the example that we have given so far, what it means is that you probably will need 3 supervisors, each supervisor at each location. All right. In sort of a situation where they may be at one place and you may just need one person to act as a supervisor. In this place, in this type of layout, there are different locations and you may need separate supervisors at each locations, and that will increase the cost of supervision for this type of layout. Let's look at the products. So the product or line layout. It is a form of layout whereby machines are arranged in the sequence in which a given product will be operated. Components are arranged according to the steps required in producing a product. It is preferred for continuous production. All right. So this is the type of production where you have conveyor belts or other automated type of machines moving products, work in progress from one stage to the other or one step to the other until the final product is done. All right. So it uses a lot of the automation that the earlier method or type of layout couldn't use. So this relies on sequence. We move from stage 1, come to stage 2 finish, and stage 3 takes over stage 4 until the product is finally done. So the units are actually the various stages are very, very interdependent on each other. Okay, a breakdown of one stage will affect the others because each step or stage depends on the previous one. That is the product or line layout. So what are the advantages of this type of layout? Material handling can be automated, which saves time and costs. All right, so it's very easy to rely on machines or whatever, automated equipment to get things done. So that saves time and cost. Products can be completed in lesser time because, of course, the process can be automated. Okay. There is smooth and continuous flow of work. From step 1, it moves to step 2, and so on and so forth. It reduces the need for interim storing. So the process is continuous. There is no room for storing or waiting or anything. All right. So there is no need for storing. The process will continue until the finished product comes to an end. But with the earlier method, okay, the cutting people can decide to do their cutting and put it somewhere. The finishing can decide to do it and put it somewhere, and so on and so forth. But at this point, the process must continue until the finished product comes out. Okay. 5th advantage, frequent changes in machine setup is eliminated. All right. So here we're dealing with mass production most of the time. So you don't have to readjust your machines or equipment to meet certain specifications. Once we standardize the process, we don't have to go back tweaking or changing the setup of any machine. All right. Disadvantages, a change in product requires a major changes in the layout. So we said the layout is standardized. Okay, so whenever there is the need to change the design or anything of a product, it brings chaos to the process. Okay, major changes must be done to the layout in order to meet the new changes. It's different from the earlier type of layout where you can simply adjust things to suit customer orders and customer specifications. Okay, with this type of layout, there is standardization, and whenever you want to move away from the standardization, it comes with major changes. Okay. Point 2, a breakdown in one machine may lead to a shutdown of complete production line. I said they are very interdependent on each other. So whenever there's a breakdown in step 1, or let's say step 3, it shuts the entire system down, because each step actually depends on the other. If step 1 is down, step 2 can't work, step 3 can't work, step 4 can't work. Okay. If step 2 is down, 3 cannot work, even 1 cannot work, because if they start, 2 cannot continue with the process. Okay. 3, it is difficult to increase production beyond the capacities of the production lines. The machines and tools have been standardized. They have the number of quantities they can work on per day, all right? And so whether there is an increased demand or not, you cannot just increase the production activity, because the machines have their maximum capacities that they can produce for a particular period of time. Since there is no separate department for various types of work, supervision is also difficult. All right. So the earlier type of layout, we said they are separate locations. So it's easy to have one supervisor to look at what each location is doing and pay attention to that. But this time around, they are just at one place. And we have the conveyor belts moving these goods or semi-finished goods from one step to the other. So it makes it difficult, right? It's like being a referee. You always have to be following the work in progress or the semi-finished goods until the final product comes out. Okay, yes. The entire production is the result of joint effort of all operations in the line. Hence, it is difficult to implement individual incentive schemes. So that's the other disadvantage. At the end of the day, when there's the finished product, it's difficult to attribute the success or failure to any particular individual, because it moved from stage 1 to step 2, stage 3 without any break at all. So it's difficult to be able to say this particular person really worked hard for us to be able to get this type of output. Okay, and if that is the case, then it becomes difficult to implement individual incentive schemes. All right, so that is that for the product or line layouts. We come to the stationary or fixed position layout. All right, so in this layout, the product remains static while men and machines move to perform the operations on the product. The product is often large in size and heavy in weight. All right, so we have this diagram there. If you want to manufacture, say, an aircraft, assemble an aircraft, you have to pull together everything that is needed to be able to manufacture. Because at a certain point, you cannot actually physically move the aircraft from one point to the other, okay? Until it gets to a point where the aircraft can fly, all right? After the entire process is done, then you can then move it, or it can move itself from that particular location. So with fixed position or stationary layout, as the name suggests, the manufacturing is for some heavy products, all right, and normally large in size, such that you cannot use the earlier layout methods that we've spoken about. Rather, you have to bring everything that you need in order to manufacture or produce that particular product at one position or one location to continue with that particular production. Okay, or to undertake that particular production. So what are the advantages of the stationary layout? First, there is flexibility, all right, because everything is done at just one place. If you don't understand anything, you can easily talk to somebody or a colleague to get changes done, because you are all at one place, all right? So there's flexibility. Point 2, there's lower labor costs. Yeah, so everybody's there, just one location. So there won't be the tendency of duplication of effort or getting 2 people with the same skill set being employed. No, at that very place, you can get to know who really is not required or needed to be there and all of that, and that tend to lower labor cost, all right? Picture that or compare that with a situation where you have separate locations dealing with various aspects of this particular product. there is the tendency to employ people that could have done 2 or more things, but because they are just because they are separate locations, you may have to employ another person to deal with the same type of job that the same employee could have done. All right. So I'm talking about the example that I gave much earlier, the cutting, the joining, the polishing. It's most possible that even one person can do all of this. But once you separate them and they are to be done at separate locations, you may have to employ 3 people to do something that one employee could have done. Okay. So that disadvantage is conquered if you choose to use the stationary layout, because the same person will be there, and if he can do all the 3 things, that minimizes labor costs because you don't have to employ 3 people to do what one person can do. Okay, there is savings in time because there is no movement, right? Everything that you need will be brought at that particular place. So no time is wasted in moving the semi-finished process, products, or whatever from one place to other. Less floor space is required because all the manufacturing or the production is done at just one location. All right. So the floor space required is normally less compared to the other types of layout. It is most suitable way of assembling large and heavy products. I think we explained that at the very onset. Disadvantages: higher capital investment since a number of assignments are taken. Investment in materials, human resource, and machines are made at high cost. Okay, by the nature of the product itself, it should tell you that have to invest a lot of money. Okay, but you have to bring everybody at the same place. You need investment in materials, in human resource, and machines to get the activity done at that particular place. So it may be more capital intensive if you want to use the stationary layout. Okay. Then obviously it's not unsuitable for manufacturing or assembling small products in large quantities. Okay, with small products in large quantities, you need the conveyor belts, right? The line type of production where you can get a lot of standardized products produced within a shorter period of time. All right, the line layout type. Okay. So thank you very much. This is where we'll end with today's lecture on production and operations management. In our next lecture, we'll be looking at production systems and the other issues under production systems. Thank you for your attention and hope to see you in our next discussions on this particular subject.